about miracles, which I experienced one. I told you about Art Michael, who raised from the dead, that miracle. This is the next miracle takes place in the city of Nain. The town was located a good 25 miles from Capernaum, on the edge of the plain. The name of the name is the Hebrew, means a pleasant place. So Jesus went to a pleasant place. Now, I want you to see this scene. Here comes this gate, see like that back door, and here Jesus and all his disciples are coming into the town. What do you think they're experiencing? Jubilation. Look what he's just done in Capernaum. Look what's just happened. This is a guy that's a miracle worker. This is Jesus, son of David. Here comes the other group, crying, mourning the death of a young boy. Notice the passage says, soon after he went to the city of Nain, and his disciples were going along with him, accompanied by a large crowd. Now as he approaches the gate of the city, a dead man was being carried out. Soon after takes place in the heels of the account of the healing of the centurion servant. So you got this miraculous healing, and then soon after he's going to raise this boy from the dead. Boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. At this point, it's a comparison. Jesus did not play favorites. He didn't heal the Jews. Centurion, he's in Jerusalem. He's in Nain. It's one of the towns where some of the children of Abraham stopped there. Here's the point of comparison. The rich, the poor, men, women, high, low, Jesus treated them all the same. So does he do us. So we should do others. Can you imagine a scene? Can you see this picture of all these people coming together in one place? Now, when the Lord saw her, he felt compassion on her and said to her, do not weep. Didn't say anything about her sins, did it? I don't know if she was a great sinner, a little sinner, a forgiven sinner. I don't know if she worshiped daily. None of that was in the scenario. It's Jesus reached out to her. She didn't ask Jesus to do anything. He reached out to her because, why? He had compassion on her. Not the boy, not the crowd, but her. Why did he have compassion on her? Now, women, I want you to think. Your husband died. Your kids died. You're taking your last son to the funeral, and you got no job, you got no house, you got no income because you're a woman. You got nothing. Do you think Jesus would have compassion on her? I hope so. I hope you would too. In that time and place, she was without. It says, do not weep. Now, I was at one funeral where the widow or woman did not weep. It was a Catholic lady up in Dubuque, and good friends of ours, and went into the place, and I'll never forget it. I'm used to going to funerals and everyone's crying, and doesn't he look like himself? And where'd he get that shirt? And those pants, are they important? And where's his ring? And they got candy bars or things he likes around him. And they eulogize the dead person, which I find appalling. None of that. I walked in, he wasn't there. He was at the funeral home. He wasn't there for the whole funeral. Walked in, this woman was standing there. She looked like a bride-to-be. She was radiant. I've never seen anyone respond to death like that, like her. We all cry. We all weep. We all eulogize the person that's died. That's what we do, That's normal. But he tells her, don't weep, don't be sad. Don't be like that. Be like this lady who was happy and joyful. And I went up to her. I said, wow. I can't remember, Mary. I said, Mary, she said, well, he's with the Lord. I'm going to see him soon. I said, well, his body's not here. She said, why would I have his body here? He's not here. That body, we threw that away. We're not even going to celebrate that. We're going to celebrate Jesus. And I'll tell you, it was a celebration like none other. She had the attitude Jesus was asking us to have when someone dies. Don't weep. Now, I think of all the people in the funeral place, Jesus has the right to say that. I wouldn't have the right to tell anyone, don't weep. As a pastor, I've never told anyone, don't be sad, or you shouldn't feel that way. You want to empathize, you want to listen to the person, you want to understand they spent 50 years with this guy, this woman, they love them, they miss them. And the hardest part is unwrapping their stuff. You go home after the funeral and you got months of, and you sit down and your knees drop to the floor because you remember when you got that and when you got this. I can remember my grandmother's house, and we went in there when she died, and they said, well, what do you want? And I wanted her recipe book, and I wanted her on the back porch, going out to the back porch was a box that the stick matches went in. That's the two things I wanted. So I got the recipe book. It said, a pinch of this, a pinch of that, listed a bunch of stuff, never told you how to put it together. There's no way you could make those cookies the way the recipe was written. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, has spent 5 years trying to find that recipe, and she said, try this one. No, that ain't it. Try this one. No, that ain't. She finally, 5 years took her to get that recipe. Well, using the recipe in the box, you know. Now, what I find interesting is, I want you to think, you're with the crowd. Let's say you're with Jesus. Well, let's say you're with Jesus, you're with the funeral. When Jesus comes up to him, and he says, don't weep, and he tells the boy, rise up, he sits up and he starts talking. I don't know what he said. I don't know what you would say when you rose up from the dead. Art said, well, he started telling a joke. It's like this guy, rabbi, he said, it's like this rabbi says his kids, who's tending the store? You guys need to get busy. What's heaven like? I can't tell you. The boy rose up. Now, I want to tell you something about death. There's 3 places in the Bible where Jesus raised somebody. This is the first one. And the second one is Jared, the raising of the daughter of Jairus. And the third one is the raising of Lazarus. Lazarus was in the ground 3 days because in Jewish belief, it takes 3 days before the soul departs from the body. So here, this boy is just going to the tomb. He's on the way. So this is day 1. Jesus says, raise up. I want to know, what would your response be? Hallelujah, amen? It said the crowd, both groups, feared, were afraid. Fear gripped them. The overwhelming feeling was fear. I can imagine, wow, what's going on here? Now, I want to tell you something. This is important. This place is also the place where Elijah performed a similar miracle. You go back to the Old Testament, and those who were Jews, and this would have been a Jewish community, they knew the story in the Old Testament. Elijah, another widow's son, in Kings 7:17, he raised from the dead. Then it said, woe is me, for I am ruined. I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Isaiah 6. Elijah the Tishbite, who was the seller of Gilead. There is a balm in Gilead to save the sin-sick soul. No, I won't sing that. That's okay. To Ahab, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, before whom I stand, surely there shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word. Wow, Elijah, what a harsh judgment upon the people. Elijah comes out of the pages of obscurity. Don't know who the guy is. He shows up and he says to them, he prophesies, there ain't going to be no rain, no dew for a while until I say so. Now, this is the land where Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh settled. This is on the way to the promised land. They stopped there and they said, look, we're not going any farther, we're staying here. So this is outside of the group that went into the promised land. Follow me? When Moses had led the Israelites Jordan, these tribes looked at this place and said, wow, this is good, we're staying here. Elijah comes on the scene from Gilead, His name means, my God is Yahweh. What's the word Yahweh mean? I am who I am. And his message is, they shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word. Elijah was a man with a nature like ours. And his prayer earnestly that it might not rain. And it did not rain on earth for 3 years and 6 months. I want to ask you, if you had a prophet in this time and this age, what would you want his prayer to be? Deliver us from the famine. Deliver us from the floods. Deliver us from the pandemic. No. You'd want your prayer to be the same as this. I'm going to tell you why. Ask God to continue to punish this nation till it gets to his knees and starts praising him again. That was the purpose here. Why should Elijah pray such a prayer? We normally pray for good for our country. And it shall come about, if you listen obediently to my commandments, this is chapter 13 in Deuteronomy, which I am commanding you today. This is the same commandments to us. To love the Lord your God, to serve him with all your heart, all your mind, and your soul. Then he will give the rain your land in its season, early rain and late rain, that you may gather your grain and your new wine and your oil. Guess what? We're not there. And he will give grass to your fields, to your cattle, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Beware lest your hearts be deceived and you turn away and serve other gods and worship them. Guess what we've been doing? Or the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will shut up the heavens so that there will be no rain, and the ground will not yield its fruit, and you shall perish quickly from the good land which the Lord has given you. Now, I don't know, it seems like we're getting too much rain some places, not enough other places. The covenant which God made with Israel consists of both a blessing and a curse. Now we understand why Elijah prayed this prayer, because he wanted them to come back to God. See, they had turned away from God. This area, this kingdom, they haven't had a good king for years. And the guy in there now was really bad. He married Jezebel. Now, if you know anything about Jezebel, she was true to her word. She had them all worshiping Baal. You know, she's a Jezebel. You put that word on people. Under influence, Baal had become the god of Samaria. And the prophets, Lord, had been persecuted and sent out. What is the God of the land of the United States? I'll let you answer that for yourself. Now comes Elijah. His name means, my God is Yahweh. And he stands up against Jezebel and all her prophets. As the Lord lives, this is the oath, does not come to pass. Then God will cease to live. When we were kids, you remember saying, I crossed my heart and hope to die? That's what God's saying. I cross my heart and hope to die if my word doesn't come true. I will cease to exist if my word is not righteous. So when he makes a promise, he's a promise keeper. He's made a promise to you. All who are mine, I will bring unto you in heaven. The promised land is this. Neither dew nor rain is going to fall. This is the worst weather forecast in history, bar today. Do you see the reaction? It is one of fear. And do you get the point? If the god of Jezebel, who is a fertility god, and the earth is not fertile, guess what? He's neutered her, yep. Now, I want to end with C.S. Lewis. How many of you like C.S. Lewis? I love C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis' classic Narnia Chronicles, he introduces Ashela, the Christ figure, when the children ask whether Ashela is a man. So here, listen to this. Ashela a man? Said Mrs. Beaver sternly. Certainly not. I tell you he is the king of the woods and the son of the great emperor beyond the sea. Do you not know who the king of beasts? Ashela is the lion, the great lion. Oh, said Susan, I thought he was a man. If he quite safe, I shall feel rather nervous about meeting a lion. He isn't safe, said Lucy. Safe, said Mrs. Beaver. Don't you hear what Mrs. Beaver tells you? Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. This is the fitting illustration of God. God is not safe, but he's good. And he's good to his children who are obedient to him. What have we to worry about? If he is for us, no man, no woman, no nation is against us. And if we are living in the midst of drought, he is with us. If we're living in the midst of plenty, he is with us. This is the first step to wisdom, is to fear God. Amen.